Okay. We'll call the finance meeting to order. Would you please rise for the pledge of the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, before I make a motion for the, or I seek a motion for the adoption of the agenda, is there anybody here for any of the committee recommendations that went through previous committees and are here now? Oh, no, not the audits, the ones where recommendations came out, the committee recommendations. I got a call from Rhodes today, they wanted to move up, but I told them I didn't think that they needed to be here, so I don't see anybody, so we'll just leave it where it is. You want to move the audit one up? Okay, all right, so then let's move number 12 up to 6B. Moved by Carabelli, support by Duge. Comments, questions? Please vote on your iPad. Okay, motion passes 12-0. Approval of the minutes dated August 30th, 2017. Moved by Brown. Support by Kraft. Please vote on your iPad. Motion passes 12-0. Public participation. Does anyone wish to be heard? Anyone wish to be heard? Okay, seeing none, public participation is over. I see, Brian, I announced before you came in, if anybody was here for things that already went through committee, that I would move it up, and there was nobody here, but I don't think there's gonna be any questions. Does anybody, so it isn't been moved up, but I don't think you need to stay for it, okay?
I think we should.
All right, thank you. The hearing of the public is closed. Department recommendations, 6A, Ordinance 2017-02, FYI 2017 July and September year-end funds, continuing appropriation. Is there a motion? Moved by Sauger. Is there support? Support by Lucido. Are there questions? Let me get down to where I am. Okay. Okay, so I don't see any questions. Please vote on your iPad. Okay, motion passes 13-0. Item 6B is the Audit Committee recommendation, hiring of external financial audit firm. Is there a motion? Motion to accept by Duge, support by Carabelli. Are there any questions? Do I have to go down to it? Okay. Seeing none, please vote on your iPad. Oh, for God's sakes. Good Lord. It was me. We were waiting on, mine wasn't. Okay, item passes 12-1 with Commissioner Drillette voting no. Seven A, Budget Review Treasurer Department. We'll have, we can start with the Finance Director.
The budget for the Treasurer's Office can be found on page C67.
Not a whole lot going on in the budget for the treasurer's office. It's about a $2.3 million budget. That's down about 4% from 2017. That's primarily in the area of the pension and retiree health care chargebacks that we've mentioned numerous times with other departments. You'll notice that there was a $14,000 capital outlay item in 2017, sort of a one-time expense to replace some old furniture, mainly chairs, in the office. I think this building is almost 20 years old, and some of the chairs down there were original with the building. So that money was taken out of supplies and services, mainly postage this year. The treasurer's asking for additional money in supplies and services in 18 regarding credit card fees, or bank fees, I'm sorry, not credit card fees, bank fees. So in the past, and Mr. Biondo can explain this in greater detail or correct me if I'm incorrect, but we had what's called a compensating balance at the bank, where we had so much money that wasn't earning interest, and then they were offsetting our bank fees against the interest that we didn't earn, if you will. So what we're doing now is the treasurer's office has determined that it's in the best interest of the county to take that money and invest it in the market, or in, you know, CDs or commercial paper, et cetera, and pay the bank fees. So we've included those in the supplies and services. What you'll see is there's an offsetting increase in interest revenue in non-departmental. It doesn't show up in the treasurer's office, but we increased the revenue for interest income by $75,000 for the year. And there's about a $15,000 increase in bank fees. So that's really kind of what's going on with the treasurer there. Mr. Biondo and Larry Lee, the investment officer, are here to discuss the budget in more detail.
Okay, so Commissioner Brown.
Thank you. Well, do you want to do your presentation first?
Yeah, would it be all right if I made a short presentation? It'll just
That's
be
fine.
a few
You
brief
can wait.
comments. Thank you. I'd like to begin by thanking Steve and his team in the finance department. They've been great to work with throughout this process. I know I pestered them quite a bit over the last few months with numerous phone calls on the budget process to get prepared to present this today, obviously. We are asking all of you to support us in approving this budget, representing a 3.59% cut as compared to the amended budget for this year. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the process and then dig into some of the line items, and then introduce you to our new investment officer, who will come up and briefly describe why we're going to be adding the bank fee line item and how that will allow us to have more flexibility with our investment strategies. Briefly speaking, Steve did a great job summarizing what's really driving the cut in the budget. When we were first going through this, the treasurer indicated to me, stressed to me that every dollar counts, and we got to make sure that we can justify every dollar being spent. Treasurer Rocca's background is basically as a self-employed small business owner. I have a similar background, and we understand that people are tight for money, and we better justify every dollar that we're asking for. And we believe that every dollar that we are asking for can be justified, and we know that because we talked to our staff. We roundtabled this with all our department heads. We went through every line item as a group and talked about, what can we do to save more money in this line item? Do we really have to increase this particular line item by X amount of dollars? We did that over several weeks, and this is ultimately the budget that we produced. I want to briefly touch on supply and services, because even though we have a 3.6% cut in the budget, really the supplies and services line will be going up approximately a little over $30,000. Now, half of that is being driven by the line item for bank fees, and like I said, we'll get to that in a minute, but the rest of it are for various things. An $8,500 piece of that is for employee training. We hadn't done as much employee training as we had liked to do this year with the transition process and implementing a new tax reversion department. And so that's something we're going to be doing more as we head into well, we are in the fall, but in the winter, and that's something we want to continue in the future. We have quite a few key people in the treasurer's office that are in the drop program, and we anticipate them leaving really in the next 2 or 3 years. We're going to lose probably 4 or 5. So, seeing that we're going to have key people leaving, we want to make sure that we have the ability to train some of the new people in the office to hopefully follow in their footsteps when those positions get posted. One last thing I wanted to cover before I turn it over to our investment officer was in the supplemental worksheet, which, to be honest, this is the first time I had to review one. I never knew the county did this. I know it was a relatively new feature, and I think it's great to have something as far as what the metrics are to measure performance. As you can see, I just would point out that for the key performance metrics section of the document, as you can tell, it's been itching a little bit each year as far as cost per capita, and my anticipation is that for 2017 it'll end up a little bit below the 2.72 that's indicated there. One last item I want to bring your attention to is the 2018 position status portion of the document. You'll see that on line 1 of that section, we have tax collection officer listed as the name of the position. What happened was back in June, well, this would have been the month prior, Maureen Alexandrowitz, who's the tax collection administrator for the office, she was the lady that we promoted into that position. That was the first hiring decision we made. Been with the county for over 30 years. Her first top recommendation to us was to set up a tax reversion department. Everyone knows the treasurer's office is involved with the tax foreclosure process. In the past, there was no specific department in the treasurer's office that dealt with that role. And it's a very technical role. You got to make sure you hit your notice requirements by certain dates. And quite frankly, you got to do it in a timely manner. In order to make sure that we had enough time to do what we needed to do towards the end of this year, the recommendation from our staff was to change one of the positions of account clerk 4 to tax collection officer, so that we would have 2 tax collection officers, and with the tax collection administrator form a new tax reversion department. So I'm going a little deep on this one point, but I think it's important to point out that although we're asking basically for the same classifications, number of classifications, there is a change. We are changing the account clerk 4 to the tax collection officer. It was done mid-year in the amended budget, but I wanted to highlight that because none of you have had an opportunity to really question the Treasurer's Department on that, so I wanted to make sure that you guys knew about it and could ask me any questions on that. But to give you an example, the new tax reversion department, we're already seeing the fruits of that innovation in the office. It's basically giving us an additional 2 to 3 weeks to do what we need to do with the title companies, that basically to prepare the notices. So that's really all I had to cover. I want to invite Larry Lee, our investment officer, to talk about why we're adding the bank fee line item, and I'll let him take it from here.
Hello, everyone. So in 2016 is the first year that we incurred bank fees for our savings or our compensating account. We made the decision to have a high enough balance with bank accounts to eliminate fees through the previous treasurers. When we ran the analysis, it was shown that if we incurred bank fees, we actually stood to make more profit by investing the funds than keeping them locked up to eliminate the fees. In 2016, we had $11,398 in bank fees. To eliminate those fees, we had to keep a daily average balance of $29 million, just over $29 million. By reducing our daily average balance to about $20 million, we're able to increase our government pool investment profits to $93,000 a year. That absolutely covered all the $11,000. What we did also to prevent or safeguard us from running out of funds is to reestablish our forecasting. Previous investment strategies forecasted monthly. So all our maturities, investment maturities, would typically mature at the end of the month. We've now done it so it's matured towards payroll. These are our big weeks that we need a lot of money. On any given week, we have about $15 million daily available to cover funds, fees, and any other charges. With our current portfolio, now we have roughly about $8 additional million that we can play with that actually revolves on maturities each month. As I said, it's, oh, sorry, I lost my place. The compensating account, actually, the way that it eliminated the funds is they offered a 0.0045 basis points. Our government pools on Public Act 20 allows us to invest it in safe funds, which automatically gives us a 0.095, almost double the basis point. So as I said, it was a no-brain decision to actually put that money into actual investments so we could pull back out and have more money available to invest, bringing us additional yearly revenue. So if there's any questions, I'd love to explain.
Thank you. Commissioner Brown.
Thank you. You answered almost all my questions. Just again, review for us what type of investments you'd be putting that money in.
So, all right, so on the basis is called our government pool accounts. This is a revolving accounts, it's short-term funds under 30 days. It keeps us as liquid as possible. It's basically like a savings account that earns us interest rates before the money sat in an account that earned the bank interest rates, so we couldn't touch it. Beyond that, any excess of funds, we only invest in A1, P1 level, which is Public Act 20, safe investments of commercial papers and certificates of deposit. So as I said, we're not looking to, go into any type of risky investments. They're very safe. We also typically, with commercial paper, we don't invest out past 270 days. On our CDs, we actually will just forecast it for what our needs are, anywhere from 30 days to up to a year. Those ones are a little bit further out, but those are, again, bigger funds that we can tell, like our 611 account, that we don't need any funds until May for June payments. We're able to take those and put them out much further.
So commercial paper is basically what you're doing with it.
Commercial, well, no, we have an equal share of commercial paper and CD, certificate deposits.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you. Commissioner Romano?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll talk to that gentleman. I'm sorry.
I apologize.
Your name again?
Larry.
Larry. Okay, Larry. Which bank do we deal with?
We actually have a list of 9 banks that we invest with. Chase is our primary.
The service fees, the ones that charge us a service? Chase Bank.
Yes.
This situation happened in the municipality I was in, exactly what you're just saying. And our treasurer starts shopping banks, and lo and behold, you're telling me that we're keeping an average balance, and I'm not sure if you said 91 million or 93 million?
No, that 91,000 was what we made off of profit by reducing from an average of 29 million.
How much did we have to keep on deposit?
Currently, we have 20 million, between 15 and 20 average daily.
With Chase?
With Chase.
And for that, we're still paying 11,000?
With 11,000.
Okay. I know this might sound foolish to you. Have you ever shopped? Because what we did is our treasurer shopped banks, and lo and behold, there's numerous amount of banks that said, "Whoa, we won't charge you anywhere near that kind of money." Have you tried that?
We have, but what we get through Chase, some of the perks, like our armored car service, we do not pay for our armored car service, which is, I do not have the exact dollar amount,
okay.
But it's an expensive fee. They cover that for us. So some of the perks that we do have, though we have to, now the 15 million, that's just our choice. We can choose to go lower. There are weeks that days that I've dropped it down to around $4 million, depending on investments. But the only reason we've stayed with Chase right now is because of some of the services that they provide, that they choose to eat the costs.
So that's some of the perks that we get for that.
Yes.
Okay, the other question I have is, and I guess I'll have them, thank you, Larry. I think I need Mr. Biondo.
Why don't you stay right here in case some of the commissioners have other questions?
Hi, Mr. Biondo.
Hello,
Nice
Commissioner.
to see you. Where's Mr. Rocca?
He wasn't available today, but he thought I could handle this. And
We know you
hopefully
can
don't
handle
prove
it.
him wrong.
There's no doubt in my mind you can handle it, Mr. Biondo. You had mentioned this, you put the bank fees in supplies and services, and that's why that amount went up.
Correct.
So why don't we just have a separate line item strictly for bank fees, so it doesn't surprise us, we'll know exactly what you're talking about. Just a suggestion, just a thought in mind. The other one is, when you talk to me about adding this additional tax collector, and we're showing that the foreclosures have gone down yet you added another tax collector, and you explained why, because of that position that you moved that person up on. I guess my question is, when they did this, what are the actual duties of that actual tax collector in this new position that you put her?
Correct.
Or him? Was it
Yep.
a her or him?
It's a her.
It's a her.
So just to kind of reiterate why we did this, you know, in order for us to meet our notice requirements, obviously we have to do our due diligence, we have to work with the title companies, and obviously there's a time constraint to do all that title work. In the past, we, based on what our employees were telling us, they were cutting it kind of close in terms of getting all that work ready and being ready for the December mailing, which has to be done so that we can proceed with the tax foreclosure process going into the new year. What this process allows us to do is to basically move up the time for them to do what they need to do. Because in the past, the work was still being done, except that they would have the tax collection administrator do it, the tax collection officer, and they would randomly pull somebody from one of the other departments, and it was very inefficient. Now, this person, what their job duties are exactly the same job duties as the first tax collection officer. And just so you guys know, we are contracted with Chirco and Greco Title, and they do a lot of title work for us. And it made sense from a management perspective to improve efficiency to have one tax collection officer reviewing the Chirco title work product, and then the other tax collection officer reviewing the Greco title work. So that's the thinking behind that. The job requirements are the same. It's above and beyond what an account clerk does, and what this person was doing was essentially doing this job anyways. And really what this was acknowledging that she was doing the job of a tax collection officer and not an account clerk, and hopefully that answered your question.
It certainly does. I just want to add to that, you know, I think it's commendable that you stayed within your budget, pretty close, pretty darn close to it, put that employee into a new position showing two. You know, if all the departments do that, we save a lot of money. Nice job, Mr. Biondo.
We are trying to save money, and just so we're clear, on the upper salary range between these two positions, we're talking an additional $5,000. So I thought that would be relevant for you guys to know as well.
My best to Mr. Rocca. Thank you.
Thank you,
That's
sir.
all I have. Thanks, Chair.
Commissioner Carabelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Joe, this is probably for Steve, I'm not sure. Steve, looking at the budget, you have your 2017 amended. The dollar figure is exactly the same that was approved by the Board of Commissioners back last year. With that said, there's a line item that's been moved of supplies and services of $14,500 out of supplies and services and moved down to capital outlay. What was the move from supplies and services to capital outlay? What was that $15,500?
Yep.
So in the 2017 adopted, the numbers are exactly the same as what's shown here to the Board of Commissioners.
Right. It was for furniture, the chairs I mentioned earlier.
So that's where that line
Yeah.
item came from?
Yeah.
And just so you guys know, those chairs, I believe all of them were from when the building was put in. I had some people putting donuts on these chairs.
No, I get it.
Yeah, okay.
I
All
wanted
right.
to make sure, because the number didn't change, it says amended. It's the
Yeah.
same number, but it's shifted to the area. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Drollet.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your presentation. And most of my questions were asked and answered by several of the commissioners. Just, I guess, one remaining question for me then, and that's, you mentioned, I think it was, Joe, you may have mentioned that there's a spate of training that's going to be upcoming that has been included in the supplies and services budget. Maybe this is something Stephen asked, but why wouldn't that be under the conferences and training line of the budget? And if it's not, why do we still have, budgeting, $16,000 for training when we've historically, generally over the years never spent more than $2,500? I know we budgeted $17,000 in 2017. I don't know what we're at, but maybe that's for Steve. Why that's not in the training component of the budget if it's going to be for training, and instead it's in the.
I will have to follow up with you on that. I gotta believe that it's in training, that the training is training. I just don't know exactly. I need to, I guess, confer with.
So maybe it's
Biondo
not in the
what's going on.
not in
And
the
what-
supplies and services. The training would not
Right,
be
it
in
should
there.
be in training. I just want to confirm that before I,
Okay.
finalize my response to that. Remember, in 2015 and 2016, there was a different treasurer.
Right.
So you know, there's no money spent in those years. So,
We'll make sure we follow up on that with you, okay, Commissioner, if that's okay?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yep. That's all I have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Before I call on Commissioner Duge, let me go ahead and get a motion to receive and file. Moved by Carabelli, supported by Gillette. Thank you, Commissioner Duge.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Good presentation. But I agree with Commissioner Romano, and I'd really like to see if Chase is charging us outrageous amounts, well, if Chase is charging us fees and we're keeping 20 million minimum in their facility, I have to imagine that there are a whole bunch of other financial institutions that would be more than happy to have at least 20 million in deposits in their facility and not charge us for the armored vehicles or otherwise. I mean, for that kind of money, we could buy our own armored vehicle.
The $20 million isn't a set fee, it's revolving, so on any given day.
Yeah, I'm
I
sorry.
apologize.
There we go.
No, it's all right. The $20 million isn't a locked-in amount. As I said, we do drop that amount down. There are weeks that we'll actually have less than $4 million. It has to be an averaged amount of, at the time, for $29 million.
I understand, but listen to what you just said. We have to go down to 4 million. Okay, there have got to be financial institutions in Macomb County that would be more than happy to have at a minimum $4 million in their bottom line and up to over 20 million. And I would suggest that you look into that, because it's not that I'm anti-fee, although I am anti-fee. Paying for something at this level makes no sense to me at all. And if there's a financial institution that has access to that kind of money on a monthly basis, I mean, shame on them for charging fees in the first place. They ought to be paying us a really decent interest rate for keeping our money there in the first place. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, may I respond just briefly? I think-
Briefly, because
Okay.
we have a lot of budget reviews, and
I think
I
that,
quite frankly thought this one would go about 60 seconds, so go ahead.
Well, just real briefly, I appreciate the commissioner's concern. I mean, our jobs is to get the best deal for the county residents every day, and we will certainly explore that. I will say this, in addition to the armored transports, I know for the money market account, they do typically give us more basis points than the going rate, so to speak. So it's complicated, but you're right, we should be looking at that, and we will.
Yeah.
And I'll be happy to do that and let you know, when we look at all the parts to the contractual relationship with JP Morgan, once you see the big picture, then we can go from there to evaluate whether it's a good deal or not.
That's fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Chair Smith.
Thank you. Briefly, I just wanted to say thank you for your presentation, and I want to say how much I appreciate you guys coming in here, talking about everything that you've done to reduce your fees and your costs and increase things and bring us a budget that's less than last year. So I just wanted to compliment you on that and say thank you, and hopefully we can move on with this supposedly easy budget to pass, to move on. Thanks.
Seeing no more questions, Commissioner Gillette.
I forgot to thank you for keeping the budget under the rate of inflation. So thank you so much. In fact, a cut, so thank you.
Absolutely.
Seeing nothing else, please vote on your iPad. Wow. What is up with this thing anyway?
Nice job. Did you vote against it?
All right, that was me, so I know everybody. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Appreciate it too. Have a nice day, guys.
Leon pressed the wrong button.
Okay, the next budget review is the Finance Department, and operating transfers, equalization, and purchasing all together.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, and Before I start my presentation, I want to thank every one of you for the plant that was sent to the funeral home for my father and the latitude of moving the budget presentation back 2 weeks to allow me to deal with issues, I guess I'll just refer to it that way. So I have a short presentation here on the budget. This presentation is going to cover like all three what I consider divisions of the finance department. So then at the end, we'll kind of circle back for individual questions. So the finance department consists of three divisions, at least the way I think about it. There's finance proper, purchasing, and equalization. That covers 11 different functions, which we'll go over shortly. There's a total of 47.5 positions among the three cost centers. There's 22 in finance, 15.5 in purchasing, and 10 in equalization. The combined budget for all three divisions is $4.6 million. As you can see on page 2 of the PowerPoint presentation, the finance department is $2.3 million, purchasing is $1.4, and equalization is just under $900,000. So I don't know how well you can see this. I guess it's showing up on the screen fairly well. What you have on page 3 is a organizational chart of the finance department. Of course, you have my position as the finance director. I have a deputy finance director who is with me today, Steve Adair. You've seen Steve in action before, so you know him well. I have an administrative secretary. There's a total of 22 folks in my office, and we have 5 different functions. So we have the fiscal services, which is your normal classic accounting, accounts receivable, accounts payable, preparing for the audit, preparing the financial statements. And we have a financial officer who acts in the basically the function of an accounting manager. We have a fiscal analyst, 3 fiscal analysts, a junior fiscal analyst, and 5 account clerks. So essentially, we have 5 accountants, if you will, in one way, shape, or form, and 5 account clerks and an accounting manager. We have a payroll division, which has 2 folks in it. That division processes the payroll every 2 weeks. We pay all the withholdings to third parties, prepare the 941, send out the W-2s, prepare the 1099s, all that sort of thing. The budget is 2 folks, which are both here. You know them. There's Dave Steitler, our budget officer, and Susie Caparucio, our budget analyst. So they're responsible for processing budget adjustments, preparing the budget document that's before you, and everything else that's involved in the budget. There's risk management division, which John Anderson, the risk manager, is unable to attend today. We absorbed that function in 2012 with the change in government. That used to be sort of a separate department. So we absorbed John and a senior secretary at the time. We've sort of retitled that over the years. And then we have, I just refer to it as special projects. There's 2 folks. There's another financial officer in that sort of group, and then there's a contract and grant support specialist. So that function is really primarily involved in the support and maintenance of the One Solution financial management system. The financial officer does other things like the apportionment report, assists in the audit for the single audit portion of our annual audit, and sort of a jack of all trades. The fellow in that position, his name is Tom Geschke. He's been here for 31 years. He was involved with myself and Dave in the implementation of One Solution. And we'll talk shortly. I'm requesting a new position for 2018, which would also fall under this umbrella to help support the system and some other functions that I'll speak about. We've sort of gone through an evolution in our department. You can see in the upper left that in 2008, we had 27 folks in the budget. We lost 8 of those basically through attrition over the years once the Great Recession hit. And then we absorbed 3 folks over the years. 2 of them are in risk management. We also absorbed basically an account clerk was transferred from human resources into the payroll function, I think 2 budget cycles ago. Over to the right-hand side of the slide, you'll see the 8 positions that were lost over time. We used to have an internal audit department that had 5 folks in it. And so we lost the internal audit manager, we lost 2 auditors, 2 senior accountants, an accountant and a fleet manager. What happened with the fleet manager was the road department had a fleet manager as well, so with the change of government, that position, once that person retired out of my group, we just didn't replace that position. So we lost 7 accountant-type folks, accountant/auditors. And essentially what I'm going to be asking for is another financial officer, which is more in that realm of an auditor or professional-type position. Slide 4 is an organizational chart of the purchasing division, and of course, Polly is here. Everybody knows Polly, and Jeff Dorowski, the deputy or assistant purchasing manager, and Daisy Menser, who's recently brought into our division from IT to fill a vacant senior buyer position. So again, there's 5 functions underneath purchasing. You've got administration, which is basically the purchasing, classic purchasing. We've got a warehouse function. We've got the mail room, the print shop, and a microfilm function. There's 15 and a half folks in purchasing. There was 22 and a half in 2008. So purchasing saw a reduction of 7 positions over the years. And again, to the right-hand side, those 7 positions are listed out, 2 account clerks, 1 person out of the mail room, and 4 people out of the microfilm operation. And Polly and Jeff can talk in more detail about those functions if you so wish. Slide 5 is org chart of the Equalization Department. 10 folks in that department, relatively small. There were 13 in 2008, a reduction of 3. We lost an equalization manager and 2 typist clerks. And again, Kristen Seeloff, the equalization director, is here to talk about her budget in more detail as we get further into the presentation. Slide 6 is just a representation of what it looks like all folded together. So the 47 positions, I've got the 3 functions highlighted in different colors. This is more informational than it is anything else. Slide 7, now we get more into the actual guts of the budget for my office in finance. And you'll see that the budget for 2018 is being requested is a little over 2.3 million. That's about a 2% increase over 2017. I've kind of highlighted, there's 3 items in red that I've highlighted that I want to explain just to maybe, I'm trying to answer questions that may or not be asked in advance. You'll see that there was $24,000 in contract services expended in 2015, and that was a one-time expense. That was the county paying for an outside search firm for my position, actually. So we hired Waters and Company to do the nationwide search. The $6,600 in capital outlay in 2017 was originally budgeted at $5,000. What we did is we bought dual monitors for all of our staff. So it may not seem like a kind of a necessary thing or a big deal. I was initially opposed to it for myself. Now I have 2 monitors, and it's so much more efficient than I could have ever imagined. So we ended up spending an additional $1,600. We reduced some training money to afford that as a one-time expense. And then the internal service line item you'll see is, somewhat significantly reduced from prior year's spending. And we've seen in other departments where the explanation primarily for that is that we were reducing our charge for liability insurance across all departments. So for a couple of years, we were charging 2% of payroll to kind of build up some equity in the liability insurance fund. There's now sufficient equity, in our opinion, in that fund, so we're reducing that to 1%. So that's kind of what's going on there. Hope that provides some insight into more of the inner workings of our department. We only have about a $50,000 operating budget. There's not really much going on in there. Slide 8, what are our goals for next year? Well, we basically involving in surrounding the budget process. So we said this last year, and we got involved in some upgrades to the One Solution system. We started working on this internally, and that is to provide online access to the departments so that they can input their budget request directly into the system. Right now, we've been using Excel worksheets for years and years. And so we send out worksheets, they fill out the documents, they send it back, we input it into the system. It's just kind of clunky. So we want to work with the vendor, provide some, nice interfaces into the system so that the departments can input their budgets directly into the system, saves everybody time, provides more time for analysis, that sort of thing. We also are seriously considering reformatting the budget document to provide more information along the lines that I provided on slide 7, more narrative information on each department's page as to what's going on in that department, to explain increases or decreases from prior year, try to explain why the budget for one year may be less than actual spends in prior years. So trying to answer some of these questions that are coming up at budget hearings and make it a more user-friendly and informational document for both the board and the public. So we want to do that. And on the audit side or the accounting side, we're continually trying to move up the timing and the completion of the audit. So we have to have the audit completed by June 30th. It generally has, historically, my entire career here has been July 20, or June 28th, June 27th, June 29th. We're filing things with the state of Michigan. In the old days, you had to drive it up to the state of Michigan and have it time-stamped. This year, we had a draft audit report to Plant Moran earlier than before, early June. What we'd like to do is get everything done, out the door, filed with the state, buttoned up, and put away to bed by middle of June, June 10th. One of our long-term goals, as you'll see on the following slide, is we'd like to get everything buttoned up by May 31st of each year. That allows then Steve primarily and the other staff that would be working on the audit to concentrate on the budget. And we provide some ongoing training programs for end users for the One Solution product, basically how to use our reports. We do this a lot for new hires in departments, so they're familiar with how they can utilize the system to monitor their budget to actual performance. So we want to kind of more formalize that, maybe provide a little more training on an ongoing basis. And, every year look at the budget document, see if there's ways to improve it, make it more user-friendly. We do have challenges. We mentioned this during the presentations on the RFPs for the audit firms. Every year, the GASB comes out with 2 or 3 new pronouncements. They're up to 80 or 85 at this point, I think, at least in exposure draft form. The GASB has been around for about 30 years, so they're issuing 2 or 3 a year, and increased compliance on our single audit for our federal programs. The government just seems to be tightening down all the requirements, more and more requirements for the auditors to make sure that we're in compliance with all the standards. So the one position that I'm asking for in my office is a financial officer. So that position, as I mentioned earlier today, is involved in a lot of support and maintenance of the accounting system. That person's been here for 31 years. I fully expect he's going to retire early in 2019. What I'd like to do is bring on somebody in 2018 to train, so I don't have a big void when this person leaves a year from now. But in addition to that, another financial officer will help us in our office to assist with these further requirements from the government on the single audit, helping out with the vendor to get this online budget module up and running, helping us out with the budget. Again, think of this in terms of a professional person who has an accounting background, who may also have an interest in IT, may have a certification in some sort of IT. That's what we're kind of looking for in terms of a new position. Again, we've lost 8 positions over the years. They're all professional. And what's the ROI? It's a better budget document. It's a more timely audit. It's not necessarily dollars and cents, but it's more useful information coming out to you and the public. Slide 10 then is an overview of the budget for the purchasing division. Again, about $1.4 million in the budget. It's actually a decrease of 5.7% from 2017, and that's almost entirely driven by the $58,000 reduction in the pension and healthcare charges for retirees. We also had a $42,000 decrease in capital outlay that was budgeted in 17 for a piece of equipment in the print shop. I think it was a cutter slash shredder. So there's no repeat need for capital outlay in 2018. The internal services reduction, again, is being driven by the change in the liability insurance chargeback. And if you go up to the revenue section of the purchasing budget, you'll see that there's other revenue of just shy of $40,000, just over 39 if you want to look at it that way. That is where we record the proceeds from the county auction. So what happened was in 2016, we went to an online auction, and I don't think it worked out too awful well. And so Polly or Jeff will explain that, but I think I understand, the plan is to go back to a live auction going forward. They'll talk about the intricacies of, why that didn't work out so well, but that's why there's a decrease in 16. So other than that, there's not much going on in purchasing, other than they are asking for one new position in the mailroom. And Jeff and Polly will talk about that. It's a mail services clerk. There's 3 now. They're asking for a new one. That would be 4. And slide 11 is the last slide of the presentation. It's the Equalization Department. The budget's just shy of $898,000, call it $900,000. That's a decrease of 6.5%. Again, all driven by reductions in the retiree health care and pension chargebacks. No new positions being requested by Kristen. And you can see that the 2018 budget is very consistent with prior year's actuals and the 2017 amended. So with that concludes my presentation. So I guess you want to open it up for
Okay, yes,
finance
but
first, or how we wanna do
before
it?
we have, before anybody else speaks, I know Commissioner Chairs. If they're going to ask about finance, okay. Okay, so then we'll start with Commissioner Carabelli. Oh, I want to get a receive and file. By Carabelli, support by Gillette. Commissioner Carabelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Are we starting just with finance questions, or have a whole litany of questions?
But I think,
Just the finance one right now?
no, I think you can ask about anything, but if the other people are going to come up and speak, save the questions for them until after they speak. Like, we'll probably have Pam Lavers come up and speak on her piece.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Finance, Steve. Thank you for clarifying a few of the changes that you had mentioned. What I have to ask you is, you had mentioned that you had changed some conference and training monies, and you added it to the capital outlay. You had mentioned that in your finance budget. You didn't mention that you also had made adjustments to the supplies and services. And
I believe that actually went up. I think it was 48,600
it was
last year.
48,900.
Yeah.
And now it's at 49,195. Okay, so that went up $295. Conferences and training went down $1,895. And capital outlay went up $1,600. With that said, your overall budget did not change. And being that those figures, for the rest of the board members, they have a right to move within a department. How much funds is that, Steve?
10% or $100,000.
So without having to come back to the Board of Commissioners, the number is the same, other than they did move those items that I had mentioned, and they moved them around. That's all I have for finance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chair Smith.
Thanks, Steve. And I know you meant to say thank you for picking Plant Moran as and confirming your choice, so you're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just messing with you. But my question is more of a general overall question for you in finance, Steve. And I know every year when you give the forecasts, down the line, they're kind of based on certain things. And one of the things you always would say is that, like, the future years are based on 0 new, hires and this and that. And I'm just wondering, with our capital fund going down, and I realize that all told, I think over the total amount of employees that we're looking at this year might be 450 or maybe less than $500,000.
Yeah, it's about $400,000 to the general fund.
Right, and I do understand the amount comparatively speaking, percentage-wise, but every year you say that next year and the next year and the next year, when you're looking at it, is predicated. Those numbers are predicated on no new hires, and then every year we're coming back with recommended new hires for things, but yet our general fund balance is, still on the downward projection until at least a certain time, and I don't have it in front of me, and I know that you have it in your mind that and hopefully more than just in your mind, that it's going to be leveling off and coming back up. But I guess my question is to you, so last year, 2018, 16, your forecast for 18 was based on no new hires, but then we come and we have 16 new hires. Mm-hmm. Granted, not all from the general fund. And then 19, and we're going to come back, and even though your forecast was based on new hires, are we going to have 15 new recommended hires? And I'm just wondering, like, how long this is sustainable, adding new positions. And granted, I'm not saying that people that are asking for positions don't need them, and but in your mind, I know you're standing here saying that that's the way the budget should go, but every year
each and every year stands alone on itself. Mm-hmm. I don't have a crystal ball. None of us have a crystal ball as to what is going to happen in the future. I would never build an anticipated number of new positions into a forecast. That's almost a recipe for new positions being built into the budget.
And stop for 1 second. I understand that, but that just leaves the only way for it to go is down, right? The forecast, or
not necessarily, but again, each and every year is going to stand on its own. So we may have better than expected property tax, growth that we may deem it appropriate to spend some of that money on new positions. I'm just using that as an example. Or we may add new positions because we have new contracts with the local units for patrols. I think you're probably just referring to new positions that are not necessarily funded.
Right, that's a
They're being
different
funded
story.
with taxes or fund balance or whatever
exactly,
we want to call
and I realize that that's a smaller portion than the 16 new positions.
Right, yeah.
So I'll knock that down to whatever number that is. It's still a number that every year we're doing, and I just don't know if you guys have had the conversation that maybe because we have to spend, and not, we have to spend this, right? We haven't spent money on capital projects in a long time, and a lot of things need repairs, so it's understandable. But have you guys ever had the talk that maybe it's a time to kind of hold off on that until we start seeing the upturn?
Hold off on new positions specifically?
Right. I know we did that for a while originally when
we had a moratorium on new positions a while back. And again, when we enter each budget cycle, we talk about where we're at. Can we afford this? We take everybody's requests into consideration, have all the meetings with all the departments. Then we sit down in the executive's office, myself, Steve, basically Al, and Mark Delden, and say, well, hey, this is what it looks like. Can we afford it? We run it through the 10-year projection, and then we determine whether we feel that the effect on the operations and the fund balance are acceptable. I'll call it that way. So I would say that if our revenue stream is fairly consistent with what the projection indicates, adding 16 positions a year is probably not sustainable. I would say is not. We can't.
Right.
But if we have, property tax growth that exceeds expectations and that's built in every year, then you might want to do that. But I'm not saying that I would recommend that, but each and every year stands on its own.
And not being privy to that conversation that goes on with all of you, and I'm sure that there's a lot that goes into it, it just seems to me on a general scale that as long as general funds are going this way, we shouldn't be increasing numbers on the other side. And that's just my thought in general. I know there's more to it than that, and I'd like to talk more to you about it. But I know that for a while that was the call because we were in a position like that, and it seems like we're kind of in a position like that again a little bit. So I'd like to just hear more from you about that in the future, if
yeah.
you don't mind.
Yep, no problem.
Okay, I'm going to backtrack because if we just do it just for finance, and some people they're going to go to the other pages, and we'll end up doing 4 rounds. So I'm going to go back to Commissioner Carabelli and give him an opportunity to ask the questions that he wanted to ask. And there's going to be some questions on the bicentennial. So when they start coming, we'll have you come up. And I guess I don't say your last name right. I apologize. We'll figure it. I'll talk to you later about that. Anyway, when those questions come up, I'll have you come up and speak to. Okay, sorry about that, Commissioner Carabelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did not see any amendments for equalization. What was approved last year is truly not amended. It's the actual number. So when you're looking at the 2017, I do have a question for you, Steve. If you can go back from the second to last slide. I believe it was purchasing that you had the second to last. You showed in red, you said there was a one-time capital outlay for the $42,000.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm good with that, but what I see in here, you're showing actual 2016, you're showing here you have 237 in capital outlay, yet in the approved budget that I have last year, I don't see those numbers. These are different numbers than what I have that we approved. I mean, in our.
In terms of the 2016 budget?
Yeah, I'm looking at this and these numbers.
Yeah, I guess I would have to get back with you, Commissioner. On that $237, we probably moved it from some other line item. I'm not sure which category. I'd have to research it. I don't know what that particularly was.
Because what I'm doing, since you guys didn't provide us with the actual budget and the amended, I'm spending the time trying to go back from last year's to this year and to try to compare them all. And things aren't adding up the same way, and I'm trying to hold accountability, operations and transfers. You know, I'm looking at it and I didn't have an issue with it. The numbers are the same. You're moving within your amount of what you have. But there is one, you moved $288,000 that I need to know what this is. If you go to operating transfers on page C16, or page 25, which is C69, I'm $288,000 off.
In terms of
Well,
the total of $56,204,000
right, we
is.
approved $55,915,000. Are you saying that 288,000 is within the 10%?
Well, certainly within 10%, but
I
it's
know,
not
but I'm
100,000.
asking
It's not, I guess
288,000
I don't know.
Okay, but
I'll follow up
$288,000
with that,
to
because
me.
I don't know where
Okay.
we transferred that or
I
increased it.
understand. But
Yep,
$288,000 to me, I need to know what that is. So if you can get back with the board.
it depends what it was, if it was a one-time thing, but we'll get back with you.
If you can let us know, that's a big number.
Yep,
That isn't accounted for.
yep, we will follow up.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. I just have a couple. Last year, you had, in your 2017 goals, you had update county travel and credit card policies. And that's been canceled, and could you explain why you wanted to do it and why it's not taking place
Well,
now?
so both of those, we do have policies for each of those items. They're years old. I wanted to get those accomplished in 2017. What we did is we concentrated our time and effort on improving or implementing some more internal audit procedures, getting ready for the audit in this attempt to try to advance the timing of the audit and the timing of the completion of the audit primarily. So we spent time doing that. So what I would like to do is then revisit that in 2018. I didn't list it as a goal for 2018, but I kind of pushed it off, basically.
When we pay a county credit card, is there an itemized receipt, or are there sometimes just, say it's a restaurant receipt? Is there an itemized receipt, or is there the general receipt with the dollar amount on it?
Yeah, itemized, in terms of what did they buy, in terms of this, that, make sure there's not liquor on there, basically? I don't know
Yeah.
if that's where you're going with that. I don't know
Well,
if you are or
if I
not.
ever
I'm
get my
just-
hands on accounting, no, I'm just kidding.
we
Yeah,
do review
well, I just
that.
wanted to know
Yeah.
if there's an itemized
Yeah.
as opposed to.
Yeah, we review that, or purchasing does, to make sure that we're not, spending money inappropriately.
So what's the type of thing you would like to add to the policy?
More direction on the credit card policy?
Liquor.
Yeah, I think the current policy probably doesn't say anything about liquor. I don't know that, to be honest, but I want to make sure that's in there, make sure that it's specifically prohibited is generally what's going on. Spending limits, there's, I think, a $10,000 spending limit or something now. I just want to review the whole policy,
Okay.
you know.
Okay, and I have one question on the bicentennial, but I'm going to wait on that for others. So with regard to on the debt service, which is our page 28, years F something, I can't, it's printed right over top of it. So the original issue where you've got I need to get stronger glasses already. You've got the 380 million, correct, right there? Mm-hmm. So now you've got the outstanding on 12/31/2017 at 299. So these other numbers, those are the amount yearly that will be paid. The numbers to the right of the 299.
Correct. Either have
That's
been
your
paid in prior
estimated
years.
yearly that you will be paying. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, so with that, I'm going to wait on the other one. Commissioner Brown.
Thank you. My question goes along the lines that Chairman Smith had about, the positions, and, we talked long and hard when we did the financing for the long-term liabilities for our pension funds and health care, that got to keep the downward pressure on the budget. And here it is, once again, I see we got positions starting trickling back in. What was the total amount of new positions recommended to add to the budget this year? Do you know? Didn't he, what's him say?
The total cost is 1.1 million, 428,000 that would be absorbed by the general fund. A lot of it's grant funding, or
But how many new positions?
16 total.
Didn't you just say that we couldn't do 16 positions every year?
We couldn't do 16 positions every year going forward for $1 million, I wouldn't think.
But didn't we talk prior about saying we need to hold the line on new positions going forward 2 years ago, when we were talking about putting together this bond proposal and the downward pressure would have, and here it is. I mean,
I guess I would say to you, Commissioner, again, each and every year stands on its own. We've had more positive or favorable property tax growth in the last year or two than we've anticipated in our 2%, that sort of thing. So again, every year we evaluate, here's the cost of new positions and everything else, and we project that out, and we determine and make a recommendation whether we feel that's a comfortable level or not.
I understand, but we were managing just fine without them before. Certainly, we can continue to do the same, can't we?
Again, each position is, you make an argument for each position. In my case,
Well,
depending-
let's make your case. I mean, we've gotten by so far. Why can't you get by with it again without another year or so without it?
I would say that if we want an improved budget process and an improved budget document, that's our ROI. We then also can use that position to make some improvements to our accounting system, which is basically into this budget module. it gets the audit done quicker. Is that really ROI? Does it really matter if we go from May 31st to June 30th? It would be nice to get that out of the way so we can spend June working and concentrating on the budget versus completing the audit.
And what is
We
the?
make that more useful document, it's more user-friendly, more meaningful.
Well, we've been doing budget around here for, every year forever, right? I mean, the budget documents always seems to be good enough for the year we do it.
I'm just trying to improve.
Every commissioner comes in who's got to see a little bit different spec, and they ask you to come here and say, hey, I want you to change
Well,
this.
yeah, I don't disagree.
And that takes time. I
Yeah,
know it.
I'm just trying to make it a more user-friendly, meaningful document.
Well, but that's not worth it. That's not worth the money to
So, I mean,
pay to do that,
that's-
in my opinion.
Well, yeah, I mean,
But there's other things that he does or she
Right.
does, and I don't
True.
know that, so. I mean, when you're sitting with the executives team and you're looking at the budget, and say, well, how many positions can we afford? Did you talk about that and say, well, we're gonna have 0 budget positions in the budget? Are we gonna, how many can we afford? I mean, just like we go into
well,
budget.
again, we kind of see the whole list. You can see
Yeah.
that there were 25 requested.
Yeah, well,
And so we said, well, here's the 16 we're gonna recommend. We base our decision on how much is gonna be spent or allocated to the general fund versus grant funding. Is it gonna be, in the case of the Veterans Department, how much is paid for by tax levies?
I mean, it's
and all
hard
that
for us
sort of
to
thing.
turn down a request, because it's went through your process, and you've been involved in the process more when they're recommended from your office to us. But 16 out of 25 isn't really holding the line, in my opinion. I mean, it'd be different if it was maybe 10 out of the 26 or some lower percentage, but it's,
Yeah, what we
I mean,
did
I didn't
was,
have-
if.
I've been
the
doing this
25
long, everyone's got a good case to be made, I hear them,
Right.
and there's all kinds of reasons why, people want to do things, but the bottom line is, we've managed without them. We've managed without those 16 positions last year, and we managed without them, even more of them, the previous year. And, something to be said about, employees want raises, they want other things, we want to take care of our employees better, but we keep expanding the pie and spreading the money out wider and wider. We don't have as much money to take care of our core functions as best as we could, because we can't afford it. I guess the shorter the rope, the shorter the range, the deeper the pot, right? Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to clarify something. He puts them in there because he's told to put them in there. And so I think that we ask questions of him because he is the finance guy, and we want to tell him, stop doing that.
Oh, I totally understand.
But
He knows
I don't think he
understand
has a choice when those positions are chosen by somebody else. But I think it is
that.
clear
Well, he's
that
the point of contact. He's the conduit.
I
so-
agree, and I think it's clear that a lot of us have concerns, especially with the new 20 million that was thrown at us, which we
Well,
weren't
that's-
expecting.
yeah, that's-
So, before I call on Commissioner Romano, because I know he's going to ask at least one question with regard to the bicentennial, why don't you come up and speak briefly to that? Oh, you don't want to?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay, then. Never mind.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Romano.
I just want to touch on what Chair Smith and Commissioner Brown brought up, and we've all heard that expression about you've got to do more with less. And I came out of a municipality that back 4 years ago in the real estate crunch, which we all saw and detested, that we went back to 1977 employee equivalents. And I'll repeat that. The number of employees we had were the same number of employees that we had in 1977. And how did we do that? Unfortunately, by massive layoffs. And it was not pleasant. I was on that council when we had to do the firemen, the policemen internally, and it was not pleasant. Having said that, doing more with less, we said to ourselves, well, we still have to continue with the process. The business has to continue. Now, what are we going to do? I like the idea of Mr. Smigiel getting somebody in there to follow up on when somebody retires or what, for whatever reason, leaves, and they have the same knowledge that the person that just left, instead of trying a brand-new training process, because that's going to cost a lot of time and money. What we did by doing more with less was we eliminated titles, and we incorporated them. And what we did was pay those employees that did more with less additional funds. So that eliminated the brand-new funds of putting on a new person. And I'm sure that we have people in our department, we have a lot of people in our departments, that can do multitasking. But it's the old story. If I'm going to do that, compensate me for it. But the compensation that we would give them would be far less than hiring a new employee. And I'm sure they would not mind taking on the additional workload, again, repeating, if they could be compensated for it. It's just a suggestion, but I agree with Commissioner Smith, and I mean with Chair Smith and Commissioner Brown, that eventually the keep hiring practices, and we unfortunately tried to do that. Now we're 19 command officers done who've retired already. We're 47 police officers that are gone that we have to rehire. So my point being, you have to do it in small increments, but we incorporated this doing more with less with the new titles. And so far for the city of Sterling Heights, it's worked out very, very well. Just my 2 cents worth. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Romano. Commissioner Gillette.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks, Steve, for your presentations. I guess I'm trying to look at the big picture. I know you're here to speak particularly on your budget, and it looks like most of the budgets you've just described have actually gone down, or for the most part have gone down. But we seem to be in kind of potentially a unique year in that our property taxes revenues have gone up a little bit more maybe than we expected, or we anticipate them doing so. And we're, again, getting that savings from changing the way we do retirement. And so we kind of have a choice as a county how we're going to take advantage of that, those opportunities, I guess you can call them. Mm-hmm. And one way we could do it potentially is taking those additional resources that are being freed up or are brought in through the tax revenue and putting more in our rainy day fund. We could put more in a capital outlay and not need to ask as much, in a bond issue, for example. Or we could spend it, and I appreciate, I'm looking at the overall budget, and I haven't done the total math on it, and we talked about it once in the elevator, but if you take out the additional road funds that are coming in from the tax hike at the state level, and you take out the veterans millage, it appears this year's budget is right in line with inflation, potentially even less when you factor those things out, which I think is commendable and respectable. But I think we're looking at, can we do better given that these opportunities, we don't know if they're going to exist in the future. I don't know how the retirement is going to project out in the future. I know we're getting some savings now, and hopefully those will continue to accrue as more people, are entering the new system. We don't know what property tax values are necessarily going to do in the future. So it would be nice to reduce the amount we're going to be borrowing for capital outlay, if we do indeed do that, by taking some of this revenue that we'd put toward hiring more people and growing the scope of government, rather than the cost of it, and simply reducing the amount we borrow, increase the amount we save, and just my thoughts on it. Certainly an opportunity we have this year to make those kind of decisions. And I do appreciate the fact that the budget in general I'm not suggesting it's irresponsible in any way, because I'm actually think for the most part it looks pretty good. But I think those concerns that the commissioners have, would be great if you can communicate them back and see if maybe we can do a little bit better.
Duly noted.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, before I call on Commissioner Leonetti, I want to get all the speakers that would be speaking out of the way, and it may only be Pam, but let's start with Pam, and if you want anybody else to speak, we'll go ahead and get that done.
I guess I would have Pam come up. I guess if you have questions for Jeff
Okay.
or Polly or Kristen,
I don't
specific to
care
their
who speaks,
budgets,
it's just-
they're here.
We'll start with Pam. Pam? Rise!
Good afternoon, everyone. So how can I answer your questions? I know that everybody is aware of our bicentennial celebrations. We've been having monthly meetings in the community. We have received input. We have a lot of items planned for next year that'll be fabulous. We do have a fundraising package that I provided to everybody. My goal is to raise as much money as possible, and hopefully we can have a wonderful celebration with the community. So how can I answer your questions?
Well, let's get all the speakers, because the next one up is Commissioner Leonetti, and his might not be related to you, and then give commissioners, it might, but I don't want to go around and around.
Yes?
No, I mean, right. I'm trying. I'm saying let's get the speakers out of the way, and then each commissioner can ask. They can ask of each one of them if they want, but that way we don't go through the commissioners 15 times. So get all your speakers out of the way, and then we'll go back.
We can hear from purchasing. I mean, are you good?
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I want to say hi to the new commissioners because I've been here for 53 years. So Bob said I got to talk today. I saw him at lunchtime. I talked. Jeff is going to give you our goals. We're going to have another live auction instead of the other one didn't work. So not enough staff. And we had issues with cards. They wouldn't pick them up. They didn't like them. He'll explain it. He's in training. So now bring him up. And you saw Larry from the Treasurers. He was my senior buyer, and I trained him well, and he went there. Now I got Denise. She's going to be marvelous.
Good afternoon. I'm Jeff Dorowski, Assistant Purchasing Manager. I'll try and keep it brief, but also answer any questions you may have. First off, we are asking for one new position, as Steve outlined. In 2008, we had, I think it was 23 positions across all of our operations, and now we are reduced to 15 and a half. That encompasses records, maintenance, central receiving, a print shop, and a mailroom, as well as our purchasing staff, which we do a lot for the small staff that we have. The one position that we are asking for is to increase our mailroom staff from a staff of 3 to 4. The reason behind that is that if we have a vacancy in that position, we're now down to 2 people on the road at max, and then if somebody calls off sick or if they're on vacation, then we're canceling the mail. And quite frankly, we've had a vacancy for the first 6 months of this year, and we had to cancel the mail far too often than I would like. So that's why we're asking for that position. Another area of concern, I saw a lot of eyebrows raised when the auction revenue was shown. We did try the online auction to see if we can maybe increase some revenue and increase efficiencies, and however, that was not the case. It was a lot of work continuously throughout the year as opposed to just a chaotic 3 weeks or a month, and then everything has been auctioned and it's received, it's paid for and picked up Sunday and Monday. It's all done Saturday, and by Monday at the latest it's gone. So we did hold back on some of those assets, so that number is a little daunting when you see the 39.5 or so. So some of those will hopefully be made up for in the next auction, and that auction is going to be October 21st. You guys are all invited to show up. Commissioner Toko was the only one last time to take our invitation, and I think she had a good time seeing how a live auction works. So.
Okay, so with that, we're going to go to Commissioner Leonetti.
I guess I'll start with you, and then I'm going to give a question for you, Steve. Yeah, the online. Explain to us. I mean, generally the trend is when something's done online, it is more efficient. It seems to reach more people, and you usually seem to reap a greater yield. So just kind of give us an explanation as to why it failed. I get it. It sounds like it's something that. The transition, you had to wait a couple weeks before somebody picked something up, and is that the deal?
Well, there's two things. There's the posting side of it, which you would have to have somebody posting every single item as it came in. That takes some time, and that would almost be a full-time position. And Oakland County, I understand, does have a full-time position that does manage that auction. We're trying to keep our staff slim, and we simply don't have the resources to do that. Conversely, on the other side of that equation, when it comes to picking up, there are rules for the buyers on there, and they don't always follow the rules. They'll send a third-party hauler across the state as you're walking out the door to pick up 3 vehicles, and one of them doesn't have a jump pack and the battery doesn't work. So it presented a lot of issues that you wouldn't think would happen on onset. Also, some of the assets, we weren't getting some of the dollar amounts that we were hoping for compared to what we purchased in the past. There was a hull of sheriff boat that I think went for $500, and the guy came by, bless his heart, probably 7 or 8 times. First time he had a conversion van, and it was this far from scraping the ground. I wouldn't let him leave, so he kept on coming back every time. And it was a lot of resources for a $500 return on a boat that we previously would have gotten $3,000 for if we did the live auction. So we tried it, we looked at it, it didn't work. We're gonna go back to doing the live.
What does Oakland County? Did Oakland County do well with their online auction? I mean, do they, given that they have a full-time person that?
Yeah, with a full-time person to staff it and keep on top of it, because it can become a full-time job.
Well, if you're asking for a position, would it be better to have a full-time person do online auctions or a mail clerk?
Well, if you look at it, I mean, how much are you going to get when we do the live auction? It's $100,000 is about what we routinely see.
Will we get more if we had could we do both? Could you do a continuous online auction and then have a live auction as well?
You know, we could look at that for specific assets. I don't think we'd want to commit to that across all assets. But for some, I mean, we could maybe not shut the door completely on that.
You mean, again, if we're looking at new positions, I guess it goes back to that return on investment. You know what I mean? If a position was granted that would do an online auction and we're getting more revenue for that, that would make sense in some ways. But okay, thank you. Steve, I have a question for you. In your presentation, and I don't know if you can get that back up here on the slide, and just go to like page 10, I think, of your presentation, or slide 10. So you were talking about trying to have budget pages have more information for us. Mm-hmm. You know, like you're going to have graphs or notes. Is this an example of what you're talking about?
Something similar to this, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the upper portion of this slide isn't just an excerpt out of the budget document.
Right. It looks exactly like the
And then I
finance
just
budget.
put a text box down below, but something that would then maybe help you out during your deliberations, so you'd have
I think that would be very
questions
helpful.
answered ahead of time, basically.
Correct. I think that it highlights some of the things that we catch with our eyes.
Correct.
But then it gives an explanation, and that's something that some of us new commissioners looking at the budget, you know, one of the issues we're having is we'd like a line item under some of these things. But this helps. This certainly helps so that we understand, you know, why there's an increase or why there's a decrease. So I would like to see in the future budgets something similar to like what you have here on slide 10, hopefully. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Duge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Couple of things. Steve, you said that we're adding 16 positions. Out of those 16 positions, out of all the positions that we have, how many positions are we short in some departments? Because some departments have refused to hire people.
In terms of vacancies?
Yes.
When you say short, you mean vacancies?
Yes.
I don't know that number as I stand here before you.
Is it more than 16?
I would suspect so.
Yes, I think it's more than
I
16
think it's more
in
than
just one
16. It's
department.
probably,
But
yeah.
That being said, I think that we have to take a look at the general picture. And okay, I agree with not adding people to the point of you can't always get the amount of people you need. But we've also had a serious vacancy problem within the county in certain departments. And I think Polly's correct in trying to get people in, or everybody's correct, trying to get people in to cross-train them, because we're going to be losing a lot of institutional knowledge going forward at this point in time. But I just wanted to touch base to see if you knew how many vacancies we've
Not off
got.
the top of my head, no.
All right. Thank you. Polly, or the auction, did the online, what was the percentage that the online people were charging? Do you remember? She'll teach you well.
There was, there wasn't a fee that we paid, it was paid by the buyers.
Yeah, what was it?
I couldn't
Is
tell
it
you.
15, 20?
No, it wasn't 50, it was probably 7 or 8 or
Oh, really?
8 to 10 maybe. It's very similar to what we have in the live
Because
auction. We don't pay anything in the live auction.
No, and I understand that, but I think, I thought it was like 12 to 15%. The buyers, yeah, the buyers.
It depended on the asset. I don't believe it was as high as 12 to 15. Larry Lee was actually doing that for us. I don't have the numbers exactly for.
Because I'm really not surprised that the online thing didn't work as planned. I think in the auction world, if you will, the people that are buying have to see, touch, feel, and everything else.
Yeah, I think another thing is the vehicles drive some of the lesser items. They always do those lesser, smaller items first, and there's a crowd lingering that's waiting for the vehicles.
Right.
So items, we had some items that people bid on, won, paid for, and never picked up. So you spent, yeah, exactly. So what do you do with those items at that point? Yeah,
People paid for them and never picked them up?
right, you're talking about items that are, $30, and they said, it's not worth my time to go pick it up, and they just abandoned it. So, yeah, there's all kinds of issues like that.
Well, that's pretty nuts. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Last but not least, Pam. How many people do you have working on the bicentennial business?
About 150.
Is that enough, or do you need more people too?
Oh, we'll need more. Yeah.
Is all of this just about set in stone, or are you moving right along? And is this expanding?
I would say
as
the
time
only thing
goes
that's
on?
setting in stone is this flyer that I provided that we are fundraising with. The events aren't set in stone because we have no money.
Not yet.
Right, not yet.
Well, as soon
So-
as Commissioner Leonetti decides to be a legacy leader, I think you'll have more than enough money.
If anybody knows anybody that would love to be our legacy leader, please let me know. But I will give a little hint that I think I've garnered about $35,000 so far. So keeping my fingers crossed that
Well
it
done.
continues to grow so we can do everything in the county. My goal, again, is to raise all of the money that has been requested.
All right, very good. Polly, last question. Sorry. No, this is the last one. What's with microfilm? You guys are still using microfilm?
No, it's records maintenance.
Yeah, records maintenance.
I'll explain that to you too.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, and I'm going to call Commissioner Romano before I speak.
I was wondering if I should wait here.
This is your workout for the day, and then you'll be all set when you
Believe
go
me,
home.
I had a much worse workout earlier today. My cell phone died, broke completely. Took about 2 hours. It's horrible when it's a last minute try to fix thing. So I ran here, didn't know I was coming here until I got an email about an hour and a half ago. So I apologize for not being totally prepared, but I will try to answer your questions, Commissioner.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Use some of that 80,000 to fix your phone.
No.
So, I just heard you state that you're getting you're hoping to get about $35,000.
I hope to get $80,000.
Okay, $80,000. No, I'm sorry. You're looking for a donation for 35. You're thinking you might have already locked up, and you're looking from us for $80,000. Now, that's a bicentennial. You certainly weren't around for the centennial, but I don't know about the rest of the commissioners. Maybe it's me, but $80,000 for a bicentennial, plus you're having all of this sponsorship, sounds like a ton of money to me. What are you going to do with $80,000?
So, yeah, let me just share some of the things that we do plan. So for 500, so our birthday celebration.
Point of information. I'm sorry, I just want to help you out here. She's looking for 80,000 max, which will be offset, I believe, by every donation. Then you would need less of that 80,000, correct? So
Yeah,
we're not looking for 80,000 plus everything you can gain here. I just want to make sure that 80,000 is the max that you're thinking it would cost
So
to go from there.
if we could throw the best party for Macomb County, I think it would take about $80,000. My goal is to raise $80,000. If we get $30,000, I will do what I can with that. If you guys can provide the $80,000 so that as I get the money, that we won't spend. The county, I do not, we work for county government. I understand that. I've worked there my whole life. I've been a public servant. I know how important it is to have these community partnerships so that we can do these things in our community without costing the taxpayers. That's my goal.
So please take this in the right context that I ask you. So if we give you $80,000, what incentive do you have to raise anything if in fact you're getting the full $80,000? I'm just asking. I'm not.
I'm a passionate public servant, and I do not want to spend taxpayer dollars on a party. And we can't. I understand what we can and can't do and what we shouldn't do with taxpayer dollars. So my goal, I have a very passionate committee that will work to get the money, and I think we'll be able to do it. And if I only get $40,000 raised, and then I'll come back, if you guys, however you guys want it to work, I will spend down, we'll put the money back into the coffer.
What I'd like to see, thank you, what I'd like to see is, first of all, what you could raise, and then we would make the difference up in lieu of giving you the money in advance and having less of an incentive. And I understand what Chair Smith is saying, but you've already said you've got 35,000, so to speak, locked up.
Well, I'm hoping.
Okay, you're hoping. So
Hopium. I'm living on Hopium right now, but I do have, I believe, a legacy leader locked up and a couple other sponsors. But I plan to have several legacy leaders. And what we did, so what we did for the legacy leader is we had a category exclusivity so that if we get a hospital, if we get a business, if we get a trash hauler, if we get these these types of, if we get an attorney, if we get a Costco, if we get, so these community partners, I'm looking to make sure that we go to community partners that want to be a part of the celebration. And you did ask about what kind of things we are celebrating, that we are planning, this committee. So if I can share some of those things with everybody.
Yeah, the cost shares are what I'm interested in.
The cost share. So what we believe it would take, first of all, we want to do a marker from the historical, get a historical designation. That's about $500. And then the birthday celebration, January 9th, about $500. We are inviting all the bakeries in Macomb County to participate and provide a cake. Now, I don't know if they're going to say, yeah, here's a free cake. They're probably going to cost. And we want to feed a couple hundred people at least. So a couple hundred people, $1 a piece for a cake, all the other goodies to go with it, and so it adds up. So those are the two, birthday cake, recognition things. Big ticket item, I hope that all of you will be a part of a legacy project. My goal, and if we don't get the money, then we just don't do a legacy, so there's areas that we can be flexible on. But I want to leave a legacy project, a legacy for the community from all of you, with all your names, with all of our names, with our leadership names on it, with our sponsors' names on it. Either a plaque or a sculpture. So we have some creative ideas. I was at Clare Macomb Hospital yesterday, and they did a sculpture in the hospital, and it was the Norden brothers, and there's Eric Israel and Chris Norden, I think it's Chris, the three brothers. They grew up in the city of Sterling Heights. They're doing actually a sculpture for the city of Sterling Heights. It'll be in the roundabout. They've done a couple in Harrison Township. They're beautiful sculptures. It would be really nice. And then we also sell brick pavers for people to participate in fundraising for so there's ways to get people to participate. But I think it's really important that we leave a legacy, something beautiful, something substantial, and whatever that is. It could be a clock, it could be a sculpture, it could be something that I'm not thinking of, that maybe a committee will be able to help us plan. And that doesn't have to be done immediately. It could be done at the end of the year, or at least get the money, get the plans, and then start it the following year. So that's the legacy project. And again, don't know exactly, but my goal, the reason why I put in $32,000 was because that's probably the minimum. And 2 other projects, sculptures that were done here in Macomb County were $32,000 and up. So that's kind of like the floor for something really substantial. And we have several ways to do that, several ideas. We'll have Board of Commissioners be part of that discussion. So that's the legacy project, that's $32,000. Storytelling, getting our message out, recording it, having videography, photography of all the events that go on throughout 2018, probably about $10,000. Do we have to do it? No. We'd like to do it so that we can leave a legacy for future people, communities that turn 200 and want to celebrate, and they can come to our website and see what Macomb County's done, and be also a leader and providing this information on how to do things and what to do in their community when they turn 200. So leading as an example as well for futures, for future communities. And that was $10,000. Another large ticket item, $30,000, planning the torch relay and hosting the torch relay. We have to make the torches, not just one torch. We're making 30 some torches. So we have 27 communities. We have Selfridge that's participating. We have Lake St. Clair Metro Park that's and Stony Creek Metro Park that's participating. And the torch relay, I gave you a map in the back. This is all draft. We got to go through a lot of things with Sheriff's Department, Emergency Management, all the communities. We have to host meetings. But the plan is, it's a huge project, but to create the actual torches. Now, Macomb Community College has volunteered to make the torches for us, but I don't know what the cost is going to be. I don't know what the fuel is going to be. The creative time, several pieces for just creating the torch, and then also the torch relay shirts, flags, banners. So the torch relay in itself is a $30,000 event that's probably 10 days, and it spans all over Macomb County, all 27 communities, several parks, Selfridge as partners. And then the last piece is $7,000 that we talked to the parade company in the city of Detroit, and they have a birthday cake parade that we can use in any parade. So we thought it would be nice to take the float in 3 areas next year. St. Clair Shores, more in the south end of Macomb County, Mount Clemens, and then up north either Romeo, Richmond parades. And it's about, I think they're $2,500 for each time. And what the parade company does is they trailer the float for you up here. They provide music. About 20 people can sit on the parade, so you're all welcome to please join us and help in waving, enjoying, creating. We have to, so the parade, the cake is kind of made already, but we have to put a Macomb County touch on it. So the look and feel of what we want for that parade, that float to look like. But each one of those parades that we do participate in is about $2,500, a little bit more, somewhere in that range. So about $7,000 what I budgeted for that. So that kind of adds up, I think, to $80,000.
Thank you. Madam Chair, we're going to be voting on these individually under the budget reviews. For example, operating, equalization, purchasing. You're not going to try to incorporate those, are you?
Right, we're just doing a receive and file. We're not making any changes, and there's already been the motion to receive and file on all of these.
Okay.
So if you have questions, I'm saying get them all out of the way.
Okay, I got it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Any other questions that I can answer?
I have one very quickly. If we gave you the $80,000 as seed money, because I actually, I don't believe if we tell you, well, come to us when you know how much you need. You have to trust that we'd be giving it to you, but I think you might need seed money because the money that's going to be donated to you might come in throughout the year. But would you make the commitment that if the money did come in to offset it, that you would keep the total dollar amount to $80,000?
Absolutely.
And if there was any reason that changed, you would come back to us, even if
Absolutely.
you've gotten the offset?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I see no speakers. Why are you pointing at him?
We're discussing using Mr. Perks.
Okay, all right. So I'm going to very quickly say, vote on your iPads. Oh, yeah. Where did my paper go? Here it is. Oh, we're all set? Okay. All right, the receive and file passes 12-0. Okay, so committee recommendations, Health and Human Services. Is there a motion? Moved by Duge, support by Carabelli. Any questions? Please vote on your iPad. Motion passes 12-0. Infrastructure Economic Development, contract AECOM traffic operations. And that's, oh, there's, right. Infrastructure A. That's it, yep. Moved by Brown, support by Romano. Comments, questions? Please vote on your iPad. This thing is really touchy. Okay. Okay, motion passes 12-0. Justice and Public Safety Budget Amendment, Grant Fund 350 increase. Moved by Leonetti, support by Romano. Questions? Please vote on your iPad. Motion passes 12-0. Government Operations Committee recommendation, settlement recommendation. Is there a motion? Moved by Kraft, support by Sauger. Comments, questions? Yes.
Don't be so scared.
I am a little scared.
I'm just curious, the resolutions that we passed with the Boy Scouts and the Patriot Day, those are automatic for the full board. They wouldn't be, I thought we had sent them here for some reason.
They'll go to full board. They'll go to full board.
Okay, that's it.
Okay.
Not scary.
Please vote on your iPad.
Your abstain will be
I can't. I guess you're right. Motion passes 11-0. New business. Is there new business? Chair Smith.
Commissioners, just a quick reminder, if you didn't get your email or read through it, that the parking deck top level will be closed until Monday, starting tomorrow. CMH is holding their first meeting in this boardroom tonight, so please do what you need to do to clean up your area and secure anything that you might need it. And it's also the last call for anybody putting in ethics ordinance revisions, not that we won't get to look at it when we start whittling it down, but if you have anything that you're bringing in or would like to, please do so immediately, because most of everything has gone to Scott already. That's it. Thank you. Oh, the treasurer invited everybody to lunch tomorrow. If you are going, please respond to them. Thank you.
Commissioner Carabelli.
Chair, thank you. Can I ask a question of Steve while he's still here? Steve, to reiterate, so I have an understanding, in this budget, you said that there's overall budget, there's a request for 16 new positions, correct? And when you said it was an impact of $1,148,000 to the general fund?
No. 1.1 million in total cost, 428,000 cost to the general fund.
400 and what?
28.
428, okay. Would, Mr. Chair, I don't know if we would do that, or if I can ask of Steve. I'd like to see, well, of Crystal, or who would actually do the research. Would it be, I want to see how which departments are impacting in the percentages of those positions.
Okay, so why don't we have you get with Crystal and she'll send the request over?
So you want to know which departments are getting those positions? Page A18 of the budget.
No, I
No,
understand
well,
that.
why don't we do this? Because we're under new business. You get with Crystal, and Crystal will contact him with the request. Okay? Okay.
Thank you.
Any other new business? Okay, moving on to public participation. Does anyone wish to be heard? Anyone wish to be heard? Seeing none, we'll close the public participation. Motion to adjourn by Duge, supported by Leonetti. Please vote on your iPad. Oh my gosh. We're adjourned.